What up, you newlywed narwhals? It's Melder here, bringing you another Arknights class rundown. Before we get started, today's video is going to be a bit different from the other class rundown videos. I'm only going to be talking about two of the subclasses today, just because the sniper class as a whole is very large, and I want to save a little bit of time and make it more digestible for everyone. So let's get right into it. Snipers are going to be your primary source of physical ranged DPS. Some snipers do mixed DPS and arts as well, but it's going to be primarily physical. Snipers fill a variety of different roles, including clearing drones and killing air units, clearing mobs with AoE damage, doing massive physical damage to bosses, and also bringing some utility like crowd control and slowing. The subclasses we are going to be talking about today are anti-air snipers and AoE snipers, AoE standing for area of effect. The first subclass we're going to talk about today is AA, or anti-air snipers, and as the name suggests, these are going to be the snipers that are best suited for killing a variety of different drones in the game. The second subclass we're going to talk about today is AoE, or area of effect snipers. These are your mob killing sniper units. They have large splash damage and big explosive damage that can take out multiple different enemies at once. One thing I wanted to mention real quickly about the pros and cons list for anti-air snipers in particular, all of them are going to be weak to high armor enemies. So instead of mentioning it in every single pros and cons that I do today, I'm just going to say it now. All anti-air snipers, or a majority of anti-air snipers, are going to be extremely weak to high armor enemies. The first anti-air sniper we're going to talk about today is going to be Exia. Exia being a 6-star, she has two talents. The first one is a flat attack speed buff, which is really great for snipers and DPS characters in general. The second one is going to be a buff of attack and HP to her and a random ally when Exia is deployed. So even though it's random, it can still go to another DPS character and can be a pretty decent buff. 6% and 10% is not bad. She has 3 skills. All of her skills do multi-hits, so every time she shoots once, it's actually going to hit 5 times for skill 3 and 4 times for skill 2. So this is really great burst damage when she has her skill activation up. Some cons to Exia. Number 1, her skill 3 is an auto activation skill, so sometimes it's gonna pop when you don't need it to at all, and you're gonna need it sometimes, and it won't even be close to up. So dependent on mastery level and what time you deploy her, your skill up time is gonna be maybe a little bit off. Second of all, her talent, like I said before, is RNG, her second talent, the buff one. So a lot of the times you might give it to some random character that absolutely does not need the buff. Notoriously, Myrtle and Elysium are usually the buff targets for me, and I'm sure for many of the people who use Exia already. So that is a little bit of a con here, but not that big of a deal. The first of the 5-star anti-air snipers is going to be Blue Poison. I mentioned before that anti-air snipers get hard walled by high armor targets. I'd say Blue Poison is one of the only exceptions to that because of her talent. Now, this neurotoxin talent at E2 does 75 arts damage every second for 3 seconds. It's like a poison or a burn effect that lasts over time. So this is going to give her some really solid mixed DPS. Blue Poison has 2 skills. The first one is a split attack. So every 4th shot that she does, it's going to split into 2, hit 2 targets, and going to have some bonus physical damage attached to that as well. The skill is great because it has really low SP cost. She only needs to attack 3 times for the skill to come up next. The second skill is going to be very similar. It's an attack percentage buff, but it's also going to hit 3 targets instead of 2. So this is really good at clearing mobs and large waves of enemies. Some issues with Blue Poison. First of all, her skill 2, it has a really high SP cost at 50, so the uptime is not going to be as good as her other skill, for example. It's going to be taking quite a bit of time to get that skill up multiple times in one stage. The other con is her skill 1 is on hit offensive recovery, meaning she has to attack an enemy to gain SP for her skill. She only has to attack 3 times, so it's not really that much of a con, but it is something to kind of think about. Blue Poison is very squishy, even for anti-air snipers, so placement order is going to be relatively important if you're going to be using her very frequently, especially on a lot of high damage, high risk stages. The last con that she has is about her multi-targeting function. It's not too big of a con, but it can come up in certain situations like against bosses. So as I've said before, all of her skills split her attacks to multiple different targets, but if there's only one target on the screen that she's shooting at and her skill is up, she's going to be losing out on a lot of DPS because the target split does not hit the same target twice, and it can't. So with her skill 1, for example, if she's shooting one enemy and her skill keeps popping, she's going to lose out on a ton of DPS, about half of her DPS potential when she's fighting that enemy. The next 5-star anti-air sniper is going to be Greythroat. Greythroat has an attack speed, a flat attack speed buff as her talent, and once you E2 her, she continues to have that flat attack speed, but she also gets a crit mechanic, which is quite nice. She has 2 skills. Both of her skills do multi-hits, similar to Exia. The first one does 2 hits and has bonus physical damage. Skill 1 is awesome because it can hold charges, and at Mastery 2, it gets 3 charges, which is nice. Skill 2, on the other hand, it has a attack percentage buff, and it does 3 hits as well. Some cons to Greythroat. Number 1, crit is just RNG. She only has a 15% chance for that bonus 150% damage. So you're playing with RNG if you're really expecting crits to land. Number 2, her S2 is on hit offensive recovery. So she needs to be hitting for a total of 22 times on her first skill activation to get it off. An on hit recovery with high SP cost tends to take a long time to get those skills up and to get that uptime to be effective. Next up after Greythroat is going to be April. Now, April is a very interesting character, and the reason being is because of her redeployment talent. So at E2, her redeployment time goes down by 20 seconds to be for a total of 50 seconds, and her DP cost goes down by 1, so she's going to cost 12 DP. Now, you don't use her like a regular anti-air sniper. This character you want to keep redeploying over and over again on areas that you need her assistance. Her skills, she has 2 skills. The first one is the next attack deals 200% damage. The SP cost is quite low. And the skill 2, this is going to be your bread and butter skill. She gains stealth after deployment, and she gains a percentage attack buff. So since this skill is on deployment, it has no SP cost or initial SP. You just start with it, and her redeployment passive or talent is going to really take advantage of this skill, putting her around the map in areas where she is needed. Some issues with her is, first of all, she is very squishy, similar to Blue Poison, but a lot of this squishiness is mitigated by her camouflage effect on S2. The second thing about her is she's one of the few characters in the game that's actually pot reliant. If you get her to pot 5, she is going to have a 10-second redeployment time down. So instead of it going to 50 seconds, her redeployment time is going to go to 40 seconds at E2. And since she's a fast redeploy character, every second actually matters. Her skill 1, a con to this is it is on hit offensive recovery. I mean, the SP cost is super low, so it's not that big of a deal, but the SP time, or the uptime rather, can get hindered a bit because she has to be attacking enemies. Next up is going to be Platinum. Platinum is really interesting because she has a charge attack as her talent. So the longer she waits between attacking enemies, the more damage she's going to do, with a maximum stack of 2.5 seconds and a maximum damage of 180%. Attack scaling at E2. It can go up higher with higher potentials, but base E2 is 180%. She has 2 skills. The first one being a very standard attack steroid on skill 1. Skill 2 is going to be the skill you're going to be using much more, though. It is an infinite duration skill, which is always amazing. It increases her range by 3 more tiles ahead of her, so she's going to have the same range as an AoE sniper. And in addition to that, even though it does reduce her attack speed slightly, it does increase her attack overall by 70%. Now, the attack speed debuff or the attack speed reduction might sound not very good, but it actually procs her talent even slightly, so that minus 20 attack speed is going to give her at least a little bit of bonus damage from her talent. Some cons to Platinum. First of all, her S2 SP cost, even though it is an infinite duration skill, 63 SP cost that's a full minute. That's like half of an entire stage to be completed. So the uptime can be a little bit tricky dependent on the stages. In really long stages like Annihilation, she is really strong though. And second of all, her talent isn't always going to proc, or at least get the maximum amount of use. You won't get that 2.5 seconds very often, so she is going to be losing out on a bit of damage here, despite the synergy with the skill 2. Now we're going to jump into the 4-star anti-air snipers here. We have Jessica. Jessica is a free-to-play unit, so you get her for free, which is really awesome. She has an attack speed, a flat attack speed talent, like a lot of other anti-air snipers. Her S2 is awesome because it gives her evasion, physical and arts evasion, so it can be used to dodge a bunch of different attacks, and it gives her this kind of pseudo-tanky, pseudo-tank, dodge tank mechanic to her as well. Her S1 just basically does bonus damage on her 5th attack that she shoots, and her skill 2 gives her a percentage attack buff as well. Some issues with Jessica. First of all, she has pretty low DPS overall. I mean, the skill 1 does 200 bonus damage, but it's every 5 shots. So the uptime is not the best, I would say. And the S2 SP cost is also rather high at a whopping 44 SP. There are definitely skills that are higher than this, but for the amount of damage that you get from this, I mean, only 50% at skill rank 7, I would say the weight is not necessarily worth it. And lastly, she does have a dodge mechanic, as I mentioned before, and it is 75%, but there's always a chance you can get super unlucky and get 25% in multiple times, and then she just dies. So, you're playing with RNG with her skill 2 here. So, I mean, it's all up to luck in that. After Jessica, we have May, who is my 4-star recommendation for all you beginner players out there. So May, her talent gives her 2 buffs. It buffs her attack by a specific percent, and increases her attack speed by a flat amount. Now at E2, she gets 7% attack and 7 attack speed. She has 2 different skills. I think both skills are definitely usable depending on the situation. The skill 1, it increases her damage of her next attack by 170%, and it also slows the target for 2 seconds. It has a really solid SP cost, especially for being on hit offensive recovery, so she can get the skill off pretty frequently. Now, skill 2, is it increases her or reduces her attack speed rather by 50% or increases her attack speed interval. And it increases her attack by 90%, slows the target, and has a chance to stun the target as well. Cons to Mei is, first of all, it's an RNG chance to stun, only 30% chance, even though it does slow at the same time. And it also has 0 initial SP. So 0 initial SP is always a negative in my eyes, even though the SP cost on skill 2 is pretty low. Now, skill 1, it is on hit recovery, so that's always a negative as well, even though the SP cost is 4. And Mei also has the same negative as Jessica, where she just kind of lacks DPS. The DPS overall is okay for both the characters, but still low on the damage. You can't really use them as a primary damage dealer. Mei does make up for that, though, with her crowd control capabilities on both skill 1 and 2. Next, we have Meteor. Now, Meteor does bonus damage versus aerial units. With her talent at E2, it's 135% bonus damage. Her S1 has a debuff attached to it where she reduces the target's defense by 30% for 5 seconds while also doing bonus physical damage. It has a low SP cost, and she's going to be able to get that 5th shot off pretty frequently. Now, skill 2, it also has a defense debuff by 35% for 5 seconds, so an increase of 5%. And she immediately deals 170% physical damage to up to 5 enemies within her attack range. This is a large AoE debuff and mini nuke at the same time. Overall, this character's cons, it's S2 activation. I mean, the S2 is on hit recovery, offensive on hit recovery, so she needs to attack 18 times to get her first skill off, which is always an issue, I would say. Her skill 1 is on hit recovery as well, but 4 SP is not a lot. And despite this character giving really great defense debuffs, she does lack the DPS as well, and I would say she lacks it more so than Mei and Jessica as well. The last of the 4-star anti-air snipers is Vermeil. Now, Vermeil's SP talent gives her SP per second, which is really nice for her skill activations. Her S1 is just a percentage attack steroid, very basic, similar to a lot of other characters in the game. But her skill 2 is an attack steroid plus. It hits an additional target. She shoots 2 targets at once, so it's really decent for AoE or multi-target damage. Issues with Vermeil: number 1, although her multi-target damage is good, she really lacks in single target damage, especially on skill 2. Skill 2 is only a 30% attack buff, so it's very minuscule compared to something like her skill 1, but skill 1's only 50%, and you lose out on that 1 additional target as well. So she has the same kind of issues for multi-targeting as Blue Poison does, but she doesn't have the Art's Burn or the high attack percent buff attached to her skills. Arknights is going to be the first of the 3-star anti-air snipers. Arknights is going to be very easy to build. He's free to play friendly, so you're going to get a lot of potentials for him, being a low rarity unit. He has an attack speed talent that increases his DPS slightly. At E1 max, it's going to go up by a flat 8 attack speed. And he also prioritizes enemies using ranged weapons. And those enemies tend to be a lot squishier, so he's going to be getting more DPS out there more efficiently. His 1 and only skill is a basic attack percentage steroid by 50%. Some cons to Arknights: number 1, his skill is 40 SP cost and 0 initial SP, so the uptime on that is going to be pretty awful. And in addition to that, he is also a 3-star character, so you cannot mastery him. You cannot E2 him. So he's going to get outscaled pretty heavily in late game content. That doesn't mean that you can't use low rarity characters to clear late game content, but you're going to have a lot harder of a time, a lot more difficult of a time doing that when you're not using the higher rarity counterparts. The other 3-star anti-air sniper and my 3-star recommendation is going to be Cruz. Cruz, she has a critical hit talent. So she has a 10% chance to deal 150% bonus damage and 20% chance at E1 max. She is very free-to-play friendly, extremely easy to build. Her skill 1 is a multi-hit skill. It's like a baby Exia skill. So she does 2 hits, and each hit deals 140% physical damage. So has a very low SP cost of 4, but some issues with Cruz is number 1, it's on hit recovery, as I've said many times, and I will continue to say many times in these videos. But it's only a 4 shot, and 5th shot does the bonuses. She's also outscaled, of course, like other 3-star characters. I would say Cruz is actually a character that is outscaled a lot less than other 3-star characters of this class and of other classes. You can use Cruz for a very long time because of her skill 1 and because of her extremely low cost of 9. The last anti-air sniper we're going to talk about is my husbando, Rangers. Rangers is a 2-star. He's free-to-play friendly. You get him for free. He is easy to build. All you need to do is level him up to 30. And he does bonus damage versus aerial targets, 150% specifically. He has a very low DP cost of 7. And he's just basically a character to throw out there to just shoot drones if you really need someone to. There are definitely other higher rarity counterparts like Cruz, who you get for free, that outscale him heavily. He has no skills, so you're not going to have any bonus effects or any bonus damage besides the talent. He is ridiculously squishy. He's gonna get like absolutely destroyed if he takes aggro and you mess up your placement order. And his overall DPS, especially because he has no skills, is going to be awful. Now let's talk about the AoE snipers. The first AoE sniper is the limited 6-star character W. W has 2 talents. The first one is physical and arts evasion for 10 seconds. At E2, she gets 60% evasion, and at E1, she gets 40%. Her second talent is that any stunned enemies within her attack range get bonus physical damage taken. So she doesn't even need to attack them. If they're stunned in her attack range, your allies will do bonus physical damage to them as well, as far as my understanding of this character goes. So she's really strong in high crowd control and stunning team comps, and she has a lot of synergy with other stunners as well. Now, her skill 1 does a whopping 310% physical damage nuke and stuns the target for 2 seconds, which is a pretty long stun. This also synergizes well with her talent. All 3 of her skills synergize well with her talent. Her skill 2, she places mines down every time she would have a skill activation. So instead of attacking, she puts a landmine down, and when an enemy triggers that landmine, they take 250% physical damage. That damage splashes to all nearby enemies, and it also stuns them for 1.8 seconds at skill rank 7. Now, this is a very low SP cost, regardless of the initial SP, so she's going to be chucking mines out there very, very quickly. Her skill 3, she puts bombs on 3 targets at skill rank 7. These targets will have the highest HP within her attack range, and those bombs will explode after a few seconds, dealing 280% physical damage to all nearby enemies and stunning them for 4 seconds. So her skill 3 has large AoE nuke. It stuns them for 4 seconds, which is one of the longest stuns in the game, if I'm not mistaken. And she targets enemies with high HP, so she's not losing out on any of the damage that she's going to be doing. It makes her damage a lot more efficient. Now, some issues with W. Number one, she is a limited unit. So if you didn't get her during the 1-year anniversary, you're not going to get her for a very long time until a rerun or another limited banner comes out, which I'm pretty sure is going to be the Calcit and the Scalter banner, not coming for a very long time, at least 7 to 8 months, I would say. Some other issues with W is she has an RNG dodge mechanic. So if she doesn't dodge within those first 10 seconds and she takes a hit, she could just straight up die, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it is mitigated slightly by the reduction of the taunt level. The RNG on her mines is also a bit of an issue sometimes. You could have godly mine placement on one stage, and then on another stage she just throws mines in absolutely random places. You can manipulate that by changing where her attack range is or where she's facing. So that's not really much of a con or much of an issue either, despite it being a con. Now, the last thing is her archetype in general has extremely high DP cost. At E2, she's 29 cost, and at E1, she's 27. The only way to reduce this is with potential ups or by using a character like Elysium, but the fact that she's a limited character, not many people are going to have a high potential W to work with. The first of the 5-star AoE snipers is going to be Meteorite. Now, Meteorite has a self-buff talent, so when she attacks or uses a skill, she has a percentage chance to increase her attack by 60%. So at E1, it's going to be 15%, and at E2, it's going to be 30%. She has 2 different skills. The first one, her 5th attack, does increased splash radius, or has an increased splash radius, and does bonus physical damage. So this is going to be a pretty large AoE nuke, and it's going to be doing a ton of AoE damage overall. The skill 2, she shoots a firebomb. It does bonus 240% physical damage and gives them a debuff of flat defense reduction for 10 seconds, which is actually pretty huge. Now, some cons to Meteorite. First of all, in her first skill, it is on-hit offensive recovery, and this stings a little bit more than when there's on-hit recovery on anti-air snipers, because AoE snipers have a much slower attack speed. In addition to that, her skill 1's also auto-activation. So sometimes you're going to be shooting that large splash area attack. It's going to hit one person, and you're going to basically waste the whole skill. But the wasting on the skill isn't too bad because the SP cost is so low. Her skill 2 has 0 initial SP. The SP cost itself isn't very high, so it's honestly not that big of a deal either. And one thing I forgot to mention for W and just AoE snipers in general is as you increase their elite level, their range increases drastically. So normally you just get a range increase at Elite 1 and that would be it. But AoE snipers are a bit different. So we have that standard 3x4 tile range at E0. We get an additional tile at E1 and 2 additional tiles for a 3x5 at E2. And now all AoE snipers are like this, except for Catapult, who I will show later on. The other 5-star AoE sniper is Cesar. Now, Cesar does bonus physical damage to blocked enemies, so he's going to be really helpful at clearing your defender's block counts. He has 2 different skills. The S1 is just a standard attack steroid by 60%. And the skill 2, it does bonus 210% physical damage and reduces their attack speed by a flat 10. This also slows them for 3 seconds. The issue with Cesar is his skill 2 is delayed. So in some situations, the enemies will just walk right by the grenade and they won't get hit by it. It's not that bad, but there are situations like against Wraiths where he just will not. He'll just completely whiff his skill 2. In addition to that, the SP cost on skill 2 is pretty high. 44% is definitely not something to scoff at, despite the initial SP being pretty decent. The one and only 4-star AoE sniper, and my recommendation for all you beginner players out there is Shirayuki. Now, Shirayuki's talent, she gets it at E2, and it decreases her attack speed slightly, but it increases her attack by 20%, which is absolutely huge for a talent. 20% is no joke. That's almost half of some characters' skill 1s. Her skill 1 increases her attack by 2 tiles or 6 tiles total. So she's going to have a 3/6 attack range, which is almost a little bit too much, but it gives her range a lot of extension. Her skill 2, she attacks with spinning shurikens. So she throws a shuriken out. It stays in the area that she attacked for a few seconds, and then it comes back to her. It does a minus 28% movement speed reduction, and it does 70% arts damage per second. So this is another character that has mixed DPS here. That's one of the reasons why I suggest you build her, and she has some utility with a slow as well. So some cons to Shirayuki. Number 1, she does reduce her own attack speed, and the attack speed of AoE snipers is already low, so it does kind of make a bit of a difference, I would say. Her initial SP on skill 2 is also 0. The SP cost isn't too high, but 0 initial SP is always not the best. And the S2, the shuriken stays in one area for a few seconds. So if she whiffs the attack or the enemy leaves, she loses out on a lot of that DPS, and she's actually just doing no damage. But that no damage period is pretty short. The last character we're going to talk about today is the 3-star AoE sniper Catapult. Catapult is, of course, free-to-play friendly and very easy to build. She does have a DP cost talent, so she does reduce her DP by 1, which isn't that much considering she is a 23 cost unit, but it's some cheap AoE damage to get out there. Her S1 does bonus damage, so increases splash area of normal attacks by 200%. Some issues with Catapult is, of course, she's outscaled. Her initial SP is 0. The SP cost is rather high, so this character is decent for getting some physical splash damage out there, but if you have other characters like Shirayuki and some of the higher rarities, then I would definitely recommend using them instead of her. So that's going to be it for this part of the sniper rundown video. Hopefully a lot of this information was helpful and useful to you all. The next part of the sniper video should be coming out relatively soon. If you guys want to help work on the pros and cons list or just participate in any bit of conversation, don't be afraid to check out the Twitch stream. The link will be in the description down below. And as always, the link to A-Ship and the pros and cons list will be in the description as well. Thank you guys all so much for the support. We just hit a few different milestones, like 400 followers on Twitch and 200 subscribers on YouTube. So I can't thank you all enough for the support to help keep me making these lovely videos for you all. There is a Discord server. The link for that will be in the description down below as well. We participate in a bunch of different conversations, and any beginner players out there, there is a full help tab for you guys to check out and ask questions if needed. That's going to be it for me, guys. Hopefully I see you all around soon, and thank you so much. Peace out.